morning, Micah 7 and 7. Today we're going to finish up chapter 10, Lest We Offend Them. On Friday we talked about the difference of when it's okay to offend someone and when it's not okay to offend someone. And we looked at the examples from Jesus. When he offended people, it was all based on teaching truth and doing what the Father had commanded him to do. And when he chose not to offend people is when he would be using his privilege to help himself rather than serve others. So we're going to continue in that thought today. And I want to start by reading Matthew 18 verses 6 through 10. It says, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he was drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses, for offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes. If your hand or foot causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter life lame or maimed rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. And if your eyes cause you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hellfire. Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven." So the entire chapter of Matthew 18, is about offenses, and Jesus is clearly saying to get rid of whatever is causing you to sin, even if it is one of those privileges that you have from the liberty of being set free. If it causes your weak brother to sin, cut it off before him. As I said on Friday, we need to be mindful of our thoughts and our actions and make sure that we are not causing a stumbling block for those that are around us. And as we talked about Friday, there's a reason why Jesus offended so many in certain instances in the Bible, but then he doesn't offend and he takes precaution, I guess. He's very careful about not offending people in other situations. Paul gave a warning in his letter to the Corinthians. In 1 Corinthians 8 and 9, he said, "But beware lest somehow this liberty of yours becomes a stumbling block to those who are weak." So he's telling us, be careful about how you use your freedoms and your privileges that you get as being a child of God so that you don't become a stumbling block to others. And there's a great example in the book of how the author was ministering and came up with or had the opportunity to stay in better accommodations. And I'm going to give an overview of this story of how he almost offended someone unintentionally. He gave the example where he was on a trip to Indonesia and they came to a resort, and one of the elders of the church that he was going to be visiting owned a hotel in the town that he was at, and they let him stay there and covered his costs for him and his family to stay there. However, the accommodations weren't that great. There was a lot of loud noises and barking dogs, and they didn't get a lot of rest because of all the noise. So then they went off and they ministered for 2 weeks, and they were really busy. They were really tired, and at the end of the trip they were scheduled to stay in that same hotel, and they were really not looking forward to it because they knew the accommodations, they knew the noise, they knew that they didn't get a lot of rest, and they were tired after this 2 weeks. So at breakfast on their last day, a lady had offered to pay for them to stay at one of the finest hotels in Bali where they were. And of course, this made the pastor so excited, and he was like, "Great, we're going to get a lot of rest. We're going to be able to get the rest that we need after this long 2 weeks." And his wife felt it in her spirit that just wasn't the right thing to do. And she told him, she said, I don't know about this. And he brushed her off and said, oh, it's fine. And I think it says she told him 2 more times that this isn't the right thing to do. And he still didn't listen. And so when he went up to the pastor and said, we're not going to need your accommodations. This lady paid for us to stay at this hotel. The pastor's demeanor completely changed, and the author knew that he said something and that may have offended him, and he said, what's wrong? And the pastor said, this is going to offend that family who paid for this accommodation for you, because they've reserved this room for you and they've sold out of all of their rooms for the evening. So they're giving up this income that they could have had from that room that you're going to stay in. And so he realized that he would have offended them. And it also goes on to say that he also offended the pastor because he didn't appreciate the arrangements that were made for him. So, of course, they ended up not taking the better accommodations, and they stayed at the elders' resort, and everything was okay. And he learned his lesson, I guess is how he put it, dealing with his attitude. And this showed me that no matter how little or insignificant you may think something is, it could offend someone. So we really need to think about our actions and our attitudes going in to all of our situations. And this takes me into Romans 14, verse 19. It says, therefore, let us pursue the things which may make for peace, and the things by which one may edify another. So we should make it our goal to not cause another to stumble because of our freedom, because of our privileges. If we're in a situation where someone is trying to, show their appreciation to us, or if they're trying to help us, we need to be aware of that, and we need to make sure that we're not going to offend that person. 1 Corinthians 10, there's several verses that they took out, and I'm going to read those to you. It says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Therefore, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. So it's saying right here that we need to make sure that we don't have any hidden motives or agendas, and that we're not trying to profit ourselves, but that we're trying to help other people and edify other people. So in everything that we do, we have to ask ourselves, does it seek the edification of another or myself? And we need to make sure that we are trying to edify others before we edify ourselves. So this morning, as I wrap up, I just want to give you a couple of the declarations that really stood out to me. It says, Father, I declare that I will live in the benefits of my liberty in you, which are righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. We need to make sure that we're living on those things rather than anything that could be a stumbling block. And then I choose to build up others and not destroy. I choose to lay my life down to serve others, and I choose to obey my Father instead of pleasing myself. So those are a couple that stood out to me. Feel free to leave a couple in or one in the comments that may have stood out to you in your study. And remember, as you're going throughout your day and throughout the rest of your life, make this a goal to put this in place in your life, that everything you do, ask yourself, does it seek the edification of another or myself? And ingrain that in you to make sure that you are edifying other people and serving other people, because there is so much freedom in serving others. I hope you guys have a great day.